In a market filled to the brim with stylized shooters and class-based systems, it is very easy to forget where it all began. When Team Fortress 2 came out, it very quickly became one of the biggest mainstays in the FPS genre. While it did not necessarily invent class-based shooters, it certainly did popularize it and honed it to near perfection, at least at the time. If you played TF2 at its peak, you just know how influential the game was. There was nothing like it. 9 unique classes that all played extremely differently, with different model sizes, hitboxes, and move speed. It was unheard of and literally genre defining. Not only did it popularize the genre, it did it so successfully that you can boot up the game today and it'll still be a blast to frag out mindlessly. Well, unless you run into all the bots that one-shot you cross-map, or matchmaking puts you in 10 shitty lobbies with no players consecutively, or unless you get forced to play the dozens of horrifically designed maps, or you get matched versus a 10k hour soldier main being pocketed by his Crit Creek femboy medic that's currently doing the heal slut challenge, or you get into a team that's being shit-stomped because your team has 4 spies and snipers and no medics. Wait a minute. This game has problems? But those Overwatch 2 reviewers told me to play this game instead. Why did they lie to me? Well, I'm sure Valve is a good dev and will address some of these issues in their next update like most normal functional online game devs. There's no way people will blindly shill a game riddled with issues that hasn't been improved in over 6 years, right? Joking aside, from a core design standpoint, TF2 100% has lasted the test of time, and the game still provides an extremely unique style of fun that is unachievable in other games. The projectile-based, long time-to-kill gunplay with high mobility options and teamwork-driven skirmishes that rewards precise player execution basically has no replacement. No, not even by Overwatch. And we will probably be making more comparisons to Overwatch later on. For example, I used Pyro again after so long and had to relearn air blasting and combo techniques. The execution required isn't mind-blowingly hard, but it's a much more unique skill set required than what most modern shooters ask of you, and the catharsis of landing 2 to 3 puff and stings, or flare punches, is completely lacking in most modern shooters. This is all due to reliable damage being so scarce in TF2. Every frag you get is earned and generally skillful unless it's a random crit. The lack of reliable hit scan in TF2 honestly makes the game feel like a time capsule of the past, where projectile aiming reigned supreme as a main form of skill expression, before Counter-Strike and Call of Duty took over the FPS landscape and conditioned modern FPS players to consider Twitch headshot flicks to be the pinnacle of FPS mastery. Outside of the gunplay mechanics, TF2 also rewards mastery of its mobility mechanics. While not as insane as something like Quake, or as fluid as modern contemporaries like the other TF2, that's Titanfall 2 by the way, TF2's mobility mechanics are abundant, but not overwhelming, and almost all of them require practice, which makes them especially rewarding to execute properly. The rocket jump will always be iconic, and while it has existed in many games before TF2, a market gardening or dive bombing soldier will always be one of the most iconic depictions of the mechanic. To this day, people are discovering new ways to utilize rocket jumping, as some players discovered the insane levels of mobility items like the Beggar's Bazooka can provide due to its rapid firing mechanic. Hell, even something as simple as air strafing allows every class a bit of outplay potential, since on paper, every class can surf the explosion damage and use the momentum to make plays, and Pyros can even redirect a rocket to give himself a rocket jump. The game is filled to the brim with mechanics to master, and it feels good to boot up a game knowing you can learn something new and get better with the mechanic consistently while having fun. There is only so much fun booting up a hit scan shooter and wondering if you can up your headshot accuracy from 15% to 17%. Beyond the gameplay, TF2 has one of the most classic and recognizable art styles in gaming. To this day, there are character design dockets citing TF2's utilization of shapes and silhouettes as examples of perfect character design. The in-game graphical style is timeless and ages beautifully, even if it has the potential to look even better as games like Overwatch, Fortnite, and Borderlands adopted the cel-shaded graphical style and pushed it further. Besides looking great, the game oozes with humor and personality. Jars of piss fly around the battlefield. The wounded heavy runs away from battle with a sandwich in hand and chomps it down quickly to heal. A soldier flies across the skies with a tiny parachute and gets pelted to death by an automated sentry. The engineer repairing the sentry suddenly falls to the ground and screams in pain as a spy firmly plants his knife into his spine, and before he can enjoy that kill, a demo knight bellows a war cry and slices the spy's head clean off, leaving a bloody corpse gushing with blood at the neck. You really won't see this type of goofiness and unique tone so seamlessly embedded in organic gameplay in another game. Unfortunately, even if you create a godlike game as good as TF2, people will get bored eventually, and lack of dev support will compound into larger issues. There was an era of staleness and boredom in the entire TF2 community, as meaningful gameplay updates slowed down tremendously after 2012. The pacing of substantial updates became far too slow to keep the game at the forefront of the industry, when games like League of Legends at the time blew up the industry and released a new character once a month and released consistent balance patches once every 2 to 3 weeks. The standard of game upkeep was changing, and while TF2's updates were decent, unfortunately it was too little. We as gamers were expecting developers to address issues in their games and tweak the game and release adjustments within a month or less. It can be argued that there are benefits to devs holding their ground and standing by their balance decision and not being held hostage by their players. But at the same time, TF2 has listened to the community in regards to balance, but took it way too far and completely destroyed certain loadouts and left the items in the gutter for years. I remember very well when I booted up the game one day and saw that they had nuked combo pyro as a playstyle, when both the extinguisher and degreaser were nerfed. Maybe it's my pyro bias, but that update broke me. Pyro has been a fairly underpowered class for a while, and maybe he will always be underpowered in the context of TF2's meta game. And to see Pyro's only competitive loadout nerfed due to popular complaints that were largely unwarranted was the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of my trust for the balanced decision making of TF2's devs. I had waited 2 years for meaningful reworks and buffs to Pyro's kit, and I got smacked in the face with a net nerf, and retrospectively looking back, they needed 2 more years for the Jungle Inferno update to give Pyro quality of life updates and rework aspects of his wonky hit registration, making it a solid 4-year wait for Valve to make the character I main marginally better, but ultimately still trash in the meta. While the community berates me for playing the character because he can kill kinda fast in melee range without aiming, while the game has a class that can instantly kill most characters cross-map in one hit. Day in and day out, playing TF2 became draining. The more seriously you took the game, the worse the flaws seemed, and you begin to see the cracks. Things like Wrangler turning sentry guns borderline immortal, walls of snipers on long open maps ticking off your head the moment you get into line of sight, engineers on the payload spamming short circuit, cross-map random crit rockets one-shotting you, empty crappy servers over and over, undying vaccinator medics pushing you back into spawn, dog shit meme melee hit reg that eats your melee hits, baffling nerfs nuking completely fair loadouts, spaghetti coding making certain projectiles completely RNG to use, and plenty of other frustrating elements of the game begin to wear your patience thin as you think to yourself, is this as good as the game is going to be? Does this game really deserve my time and money? Enter Overwatch. I think most of us understood the impact of Overwatch during its heyday. A supposed successor to TF2's formula, modernized and upkept by world-renowned studio at its prime, with massive esports potential. It was a no-brainer to at least give the game a try for all those jaded with the mediocre state TF2 was in. But obviously, TF2 is the style of game to create extremely loyal players, and many players will play forever and not even bat an eye at another game. For what it's worth, Overwatch was an extremely valiant effort in modernizing some of the ideas introduced by TF2, and it succeeded in many ways. The game was designed with competitive integrity at the forefront, and broken interactions are addressed with proper reworks and changes, even though some of them might take some time. To this day, TF2 still has one of the most cobbled together set of competitive rules that plays completely differently than pubs, with confusing rules like item bans, class limits, and a limited map pool, which is not a sustainable way of transitioning the player base into skill-based rank bracket. Overwatch felt like a game that rewards you for engaging with it competitively. The meta was comprehensible and not bogged down by community-sanctioned bans. The ranked matchmaking was functional and fair. The map design and combat mechanics encouraged group pushes while allowing for sparse flank plays to prevent the match from devolving into sporadic and random deathmatching. And role locking prevented games from devolving into a complete wash due to players refusing to play a certain role. Of course, the game has its flaws, but it successfully took the TF2 class-based shooter formula and made it accessible and fun in the modern age of competitive gaming and esports that no other FPS has managed to do at that point. While we're making comparisons to Overwatch, let's address some of TF2 players' extremely negative reactions to Overwatch 2's Steam launch and their critique of Overwatch 2 that blatantly ignored TF2's more deplorable flaws, and point out some extremely painful and disgusting hypocrisy because apparently you don't need self-awareness or critical thinking as long as you're shitting on Overwatch 2. Overwatch 2 is a greedy cash grab. TF2 has a free-to-play limitation that severely gimps your experience in the game, such as a smaller backpack, a lower amount of blueprints for crafting weapons, and an extremely limited trade functionality where you cannot trade items that you receive through drops. Right off the bat, TF2 has a worse free-to-play experience. And oh yeah, instead of dealing with bots and cheaters that spam new accounts, Valve decided that new accounts can send messages, talk, or use voice commands. Also, TF2 basically invented and popularized the idea of loot boxes. So if you ever complain about gacha and gambling in modern gaming, you have Gaben and TF2 to thank for your unlocks being pay-gated behind gambling. Also, you have to unlock up to 160 weapons to not have a tactical disadvantage in loadout swapping. Good luck unlocking all of that as a free-to-play without trading. And even if you aren't free-to-play, you have to jump through massive hoops of idling for item drops and using third-party trading sites to fill out your inventory. Oh yeah, also, you have to pay $5 to play the ranked mode, which is dead by the way. At least they put it on discount. This shit used to cost $20. Oh, let's not forget, if you really want to gamble big and waste hours upon hours, you can buy MVM tour tickets and lose hundreds of dollars farming for gold weapons. Also, the only new content Valve pumps out consistently are loot boxes that clog up your inventory, where people are constantly encouraged to open to gamble for unusual hats to sell for hundreds of dollars. What does Overwatch 2 do that's so much worse? Sell a $40 skin bundle where they give you $20 worth of coins and a $10 battle pass and an additional $20 worth of skins and cosmetics? Sell a battle pass like every free-to-play game under the sun? You don't like the prices? Well, it takes 500 loot boxes in Apex to unlock an heirloom item. If you are paying for it, then that's around $400 to $500 depending on the coin bundles you buy. In Valorant, if you want the goofy-ass dragon gun, that's $25 for a rifle and $50 for the knife, with the option to pay another $7 if you want to upgrade its animation and change its colors. So yeah, this narrative that Overwatch 2 is made to be a cash cow makes zero fucking sense when it has one of the tamest microtransaction systems, especially if you compare to TF2. The only questionable thing I dislike about the monetization is locking the new hero in the battle pass for one season. But in practice, you can fairly easily unlock the hero within the free battle pass tiers, and unlocking them after the battle pass is even easier with some fairly easy class and practice mode challenges, so I have no big qualms there, especially since the hero is rank locked until mid-season, where most people have the opportunity to unlock the hero. Also, I love these reviews of people saying porn animators work harder than the devs, and people leaving a link to TF2, a game where there's rumors that there's only like 2 devs working on the game part-time, with one of them being an outside contractor. When Overwatch has one of the fastest content delivery roadmaps in the free-to-play shooter space at 1 new season per 2 months. The rose-tinted glasses these people have on are burnt into their retinas at this point, and make them blind. These motherfuckers straight up see TF2 with pyrovision, like it's some sort of FPS utopia when half the time it's on fire and burning to the fucking ground.
I don't even know how you handle this. Oh my god. Look at this! Look at this! Valve! Come on, bro! I'm sorry. No, this is actually a joke. You cannot be adding freaking crates, purchasable items, and having me spend $500 on keys, while at the same time, like, that's the only place you're putting your effort. You're putting your effort into adding items and doing nothing to stop this. I just love, like, I can comedically time the headshot. These are the developers. The developers that are allowing this are also the ones that are happy and, like, they think it's fine to still put keys and boxes in their game. They think it's fine to profit from the game while putting zero work into anything around that.
The saddest aspect about all this is that in a lot of ways, TF2 as a game is still one of the most uninhibited fun ones you can play. There's a reason it's retaining better player numbers than many other more relevant and supported games. TF2 straight up has competitive player numbers to games like Halo, Siege, and Battlefield. When you strip away all the modern gaming bullshit like games as service support, bi-weekly balance patches, season passes, esports, competitive ladder, loot boxes, and what have you, and just boot up and play a game for fun, TF2 is undoubtedly one of the rawest, most visceral shooter fun you can still have in 2023. The game at its core is immaculately built to be mind-numbingly fun because its core gameplay design is so well done. All these other modern games have been diluted and neutered through entry after entry of game design built for mass appeal. Modern shooters have to be built for fair ranked play. The balance has to cater to pro players. The gameplay loop needs to maximize engagement through drip feeding players with dopamine so they are never challenged. And plenty of other shit that has infected modern multiplayer game design that makes all of them feel the same. TF2, for better or worse, is stuck in time. Perhaps in a time where PvP games have yet to be corrupted. The lack of balancing in TF2 is both a blessing and a curse. While the game suffers from a tremendous amount of obvious balancing issues, it's still undeniably fun to hop into a server and absolutely dominate with something stupid and broken, like nailing 5 guys in the head consecutively with a sniper and instantly deleting them, or getting away with murder after stabbing a heavy with a kunai and gaining a stupid amount of overheal, or maybe even just doing something dumb but viable, like a good old game of market gardening soldier, where you ignore the objective and hunt down poor unsuspecting snipers with a good old critical shovel to the top of their cranium, or dual-wing combat medic to chain infinite Ubers. It's so comforting to boot up a game and be able to do something stupid and fun while being semi-competitive. And TF2 is a game that offers many choices in terms of playstyles that are viable and stupid at the same time. The lack of giving a shit about competitive integrity gave TF2 a massive edge when it comes to mindless dumb fun that is not only varied, but at times, skillful. If I gave a shit about ranking up in TF2 and fighting things that are fair and balanced, I would rip my fucking hair out. The game was never designed around engineers being able to sentry jump to completely fucked up sentry spots. No one designed Beggar's Bazooka to turn Soldier into a human missile. And no one thought spies should be able to use movement to backstab someone in the shoulder while staring them in the face. Are some of these mechanics kinda broken? Absolutely. But time and time again, we are reminded that some games are just more fun with broken mechanics that get incorporated into gameplay loop and develops into playstyles. And TF2 has aged much nicer in terms of unintended mechanics enhancing gameplay. Apex Legends has been in turmoil over the removal of tap strafing and other momentum preserving techniques like wall jumping, and a variety of hop techniques, even though these techniques are rarely that impactful and is only impressive for pub stopping highlights. This attitude of game design in modern games have been very boring to experience. It feels like almost every shooter only ever wants a player to learn to aim better and learn the contextual decision making of the game instead of developing skills for new and interesting combat mechanics. TF2 still has a place in modern gaming as a reminder of what a pure, fun shooter is meant to be. And ultimately, its existence is a bigger tragedy than Overwatch because the devs have simply given up on it, and the game's overall experience has greatly deteriorated over the years, despite its basic gameplay design being top-notch. Like I mentioned before, maybe a lack of changes is positive, since the game will always remain to be the same old fun TF2 we love. And historically, many changes have worsened the game, like some baffling balance changes and some ugly as fuck cosmetics that ruin the beautiful art style of the game. But still, TF2 would benefit greatly from constant quality of life improvements, bug fixes, and maybe a slower pace and less drastic set of balance changes. Hell, the community would be extremely happy and the game would continue to thrive if cheaters and bots got dealt with, even if Valve never added another meaningful content update. There's so many ways to improve TF2 and the game has so much room to get even bigger. Even if we don't want to invest resources in TF2, it could benefit from so many smaller scale quality of life updates that will satisfy many of this current players and keep the game profitable for ages. But instead, we will likely get nothing forever, while the players still desperately dump mountains of money on hats to prove that TF2 is worth Valve's time. I would love to be wrong and maybe Valve is cooking up TF3 on Source 2. But that's likely a pipe dream, and TF2 will forever remain to be a dysfunctional time capsule of one of the best shooters to ever exist that got kneecapped by Valve because they simply don't give a shit about one of the most famous and beloved IP in gaming culture. Oh well, I guess I'm gonna boot up some Futa tracer animation to feel better. I'll see you guys later. Gooner Man, out.